Hi, Shyam. Can we start?
Yeah, let's do it.
Um, you'll present your screen or
Uh, Sorry, Akash, can you come again?
uh, you will be presenting your
I'll be
screen,
present.
right?
Yeah, when
Okay,
you turn it over, I will start presenting.
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. So in today's webinar, we'll be talking about empowering IT leaders, how agentic AI is transforming business workflows, right? So here we will break down how AI agents process information, make decisions, and evolve through learning. So this webinar will provide valuable insights into the role of AI agents across industries, from automating workflows to driving innovation in business, research, and creativity. We'll also discuss their growing influence and what the future holds for intelligent systems. Right. So before starting the webinar, I will introduce today's speaker. So today's speaker is Mr. Shyam Venkatesh. So he serves as the Director of Architecture in a fintech industry and brings over 20 plus years of experience. As a seasoned technology leader, solution architect, and data scientist, he offers deep expertise on the evolving role of AI in leadership and its transformative business impact. So today, Shyam will help us understand the critical skills leaders need in AI-driven world, the opportunities the shift presents, and the challenges we must navigate. So, so he will be also answering your questions. So please feel free to engage and participate, right? So before handing over the session to the speaker, I would like to give basic instructions about this webinar. So this is a listen only mode webinar. So whatever queries or doubts you have, you can either use the Q&A section, which is present below in the menu, or you can also make use of the chat section. Okay. Thank you. Over to you, Shyam.
Hey, Vikas, thank you so much for the kind introduction. Hello, folks. Welcome to today's session. I'll start sharing my screen, and it'll be great if you can confirm if you're able to see. Right, Gajanan, I just started sharing. So please confirm if you are able to see and if you are able to hear me well. Right. So, great. Thank you for the confirmation, right? So, like Vikas told, my name is Sham, and this will be the master class that we will be having. And let's keep this interactive, folks, right? Like, I see all of you are posting messages on chat, which is good. So let's keep this going. Any questions you have, any thoughts you want to share, that'll be our medium, right? So I'll keep an eye on the chat window and we'll take up questions as we go, right? So let's get into the topic, right? So the topic today is all about agentic AI, right? But before that, you know just to set the context, so AI, we are currently in a AI revolution, so to speak, right? So over the era, we have seen industrial revolution come and go. We have seen the rise of electricity come and go. The computer era came, right, where memory was and compute became, prominent. And then there was the internet era, right? So all these were technological waves that transformed the society in one way or the other, right? It transformed individuals, it transformed business, the governments, and we as society, we as humankind, we adapted very quickly to these technological waves, right? So right now we are riding the AI revolution phase, right? And it is not very abrupt. It has been built on decades of progress. There has been progress around automation, big data, right? And this AI is transforming industries and daily life, right? Like internet AI is seen as inevitable today, right? So, and this evolution is inevitable, right? And we need to adapt to it, right? AI is essential, and the leadership, right? Especially. It's critical that you guide your organization, you guide individuals in harnessing AI both ethically and strategically for your business benefit, right? So that's the bottom line I want to start with, right? Now, again, before I jump into agentic AI, let's define what is AI, right? AI, most of you already know, it is the ability of computers or machines to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, right? Things that require learning, things that require reasoning, things that require problem solving, decision making, right? Our understanding language, right? So these are all human intelligence. Now we are expecting machines to have that ability, right? So AI lets computer think and learn like humans. Some common examples are like virtual assistants, chatbots, autonomous cars, movie recommendations, YouTube recommendations, social media feed, right? You name it. And within AI, machine learning and deep learning are important parts. They allow, systems to learn from data, and you don't have to explicitly program them to do that, right? And AI has already found many technologies, many industries, and they're changing how we work, how we learn, and how we interact, right? So this is all about AI. So we have already seen the AI wave, right? Now let's jump into agentic AI. What exactly agentic AI is, right? I'm sure all of you have some idea, but let me define, right? So there are three aspects of agentic AI that makes it very significant, right? One is its autonomous nature, right? It can do task execution on its own, right? And this task execution can be multi-step task, right? Like for example, building apps, or for example, resolving IT issues or managing workflows, right? Without any human intervention, it is able to do the task execution autonomously, right? That is one, autonomous task execution, right? Number two is tool-oriented reasoning. What I mean by that is it can interact with external tools. It can interact with your browser, with your Outlook, with your APIs, with your interpreters, with your databases. It can gather data, it can take action, and it can refine how dynamically it can tweak the outcome or how it can improve the outcome, right? So tool-oriented reasoning, right? And third important thing is it has memory and goals, right? So unlike traditional AI, and we'll differentiate what is the difference between agentic AI and traditional AI. But unlike traditional AI, agentic AI can remember context. They can remember users' preferences, right? They can enable personalization, right? So all these makes agentic AI, very critical, and they are not something that can be ignored, and they can definitely bring a lot of value. And we'll see some real world use cases where it is, we are applying agentic AI, right? So these are the things that we talked about, right? The characteristics of AI agent that makes it very critical, right? The autonomous nature of it, right? You don't need any human intervention. It can make decisions, it can take actions, and it can learn from experiences, right? We talked about perception. It can talk to any external tools. Similarly, it can use sensors, it can use input mechanisms and perceive the environment, gather data, and understand context. It can help you in decision making by applying reasoning, by applying decision making. This is always this was always there, right? Even AI was doing that, right? On top of this, the autonomous nature, the perception, and learning. And again, learning was also there. AI can do that, right? AI can improve their performance over time by learning from past data, right? So the same applies to agentic AI. It can do decision making, it can learn, but at the same time, it can bring in autonomous nature. It can do task execution, right, step by step, and it can do perception with reasoning, right? So these are the characteristics of agentic AI that makes it, very critical, right? So again, a little bit of history. We don't want to get too much into it. Birth of AI. We talked about AI being, the ability of machines to think like human or having human-like intelligence, right? So way back in the 60s, Alan Turing coined the Turing test, right? And it's very simple. What Alan Turing told was there is a machine, and you put a screen in front of it, right? And there's a human on the other side interacting with this machine, right? And the interaction is so seamless that the human forgets it's a machine, and the machine is behaving like a human. Then it passes the Turing test, right? And it can be called AI. And even today, the Turing test is being used, right? OpenAI, when they released GPT 3.5, they ran it through the Turing test, right? And it passed, right? Symbolic AI by John McCarthy, right, came way back in the 50s and 60s, right? In the 70s and 80s, we had expert systems. We had limitations of compute. We had limitations of memory. We had very limited data. So that was the era of expert systems where you could build multiple if-else loops and make the system smart, right? It had its challenges, a lot of decision making was happening. You had to keep up with it as the environment changes, right? So it had its challenges. So obviously in the 90s, there was a need for algorithms, right, to be able to look at data and learn from them, right? And that was the rise of machine learning, right? Neural networks were able to like improve the adaptability of AI. There came the reinforcement learning, right, which was like trial and error, right? It came up with an ecosystem sort of things where the reward based learning was reinforced, and that led to reinforcement learning. It's still very aspirational. We haven't achieved very state of art reinforcement learning because it needs a lot of data and a lot of training, right? And then there was the big data, right? So around the 2000s, a lot of business went digital. So what happened was the data started accumulating. Organizations, businesses, enterprises were sitting on decades worth of data, right? Petabytes, terabytes of data. So with that, the computational power also, improved, right? So companies were able to purchase compute in, not so much, of a cash. So that's when big data and computational power, right, kicked in, and we saw growth in natural language processing because these are unstructured data, right? For ML, you generally train the algorithm with structured data, where columnar data, right? You have a key and a value, or you have, input attributes, and then there's a label to it, right? But with, big data and additional computer power that we had, we were able to train these models with unstructured data like voice, speech, text, images, videos, right? And then we were able to build autonomous systems. And then there came along small agents, right, which we also call bots that can handle complex tasks, which is almost autonomous to its nature. And then there was a deep learning revolution in the 2010s, which is it's still prevalent in most enterprise. There came the state of art performant AI systems built on complex models like transformers, complex models like GPTs, complex models like BERT, CNN, RNN, right? And this was integrated with IoT. This was run on edge on cloud computing, right? To expand the application. So that was the evolution of AI. And where we stand today, folks, is where, there is a culmination of how you can use AI along with agents which can do task execution autonomously. And they cannot just do automation, they can scale. They are capable of processing vast amounts of data, and they can manage large scale operations. Let's take few examples. IT and operations. I'm sure a lot of leaders here on this call, I see about 30 of us. So you might be in the IT and operations, right? Imagine a scenario where you have to detect outages, you have to open tickets, you have to run diagnostic of that, apply patch, and notify stakeholders. Now you have your ops team or IT team that does that. Somebody has to catch, there should be a proper monitoring in place, there should be some warnings There should be some notifications and alerts, and based on that, someone should react. Imagine an AI agent doing that, being able to detect these outages, detect open tickets automatically, run diagnostics, and apply patches and notify. So a lot of organizations are already doing that using agentic AI, and that way, the manual turnaround time rate has been reduced by 40 to 60%. Or let's say you're into IT and you are looking at cloud cost. Your boss has been complaining about cloud cost being inflated. Now you need to continuously monitor cloud usage, be it AWS or Azure or GCP. You have to right size it, the VMs, the storage, the right class, instance class should be used. You have to, if there are any reserved instances, you have to auto negotiate it, that you have to save millions. Imagine an AI agent doing that, continuously monitoring cloud usage, right sizing it dynamically, right? And saving you millions of dollars in any business workflow, finance. An AI agent today can reconcile invoices. They can reconcile against contracts, against purchase orders, and also chase for approvals, flag any anomalies that it can see. Let's say you are in a procurement kind of a business. Agentic AI can negotiate with suppliers. It can autonomously, you know, uh, put some terms, reducing your sourcing cycle, right? And that's a very heavy lifting today. If you're in procurement, you might know cycle times, are too expensive. Or let's say you're in customer service. You can have a multi-agent orchestration where one agent answers frequently asked questions like how do I unlock my account? How do I, log in? How do I, change my password? And another agent can look at order lookups, and another agent can escalate intelligently. So the customer wait time gets reduced. Even in the field of knowledge work and decisioning, you can see legal, right? In especially in legal, I'll show you a few examples. Agentic AI are reviewing contracts. These legal paralegal people are very expensive, right? They charge hourly, and it goes about $700 per hour. And they need to look at like estate documents. They need to look at a lot of legal documents which runs pages, and it can run for months, and you continue to keep paying them just to review the contract. Imagine agentic AI doing that, extracting the key clauses, extracting risk terms, suggesting risk terms, and reducing the first level review by 70%. In HR, right? Recruitments are happening using agentic AI. Agentic AI is screening resumes. They're auto scheduling interviews. They're preparing interviewer briefing packs, even in healthcare, even in manufacturing, right? So agentic AI has been around, and they're like it's like hiring an army, right? And you're actually hiring an army of tireless digital interns, and these interns are specialized in one task, and they're coordinating with other interns and learning continuously, and almost zero marginal cost, right? How how crazy it is. And it's just not an automation, right? It's basically you're doing judgment at scale. It doesn't have to follow rules. It adopts, it adapts, right? It negotiates, it optimizes 24/7. It's doing, right? And I'll, towards the later part of this session, I will also give you what is the practical implementation roadmap that you can do to adapt agentic AI, and how you can start measuring business value once you adopt agentic AI, right? So I'll talk about that. So importance of agentic AI, they are definitely used in real-time decision making, adaptability, right? They can work with machine learning, reinforcement learning. AI agents evolve continuously. They improve their accuracy. Their decision making abilities are, something that to go for, right? Personalization. They analyze and behaviors, preferences, and give you tailored experiences. We talked about examples in customer service. We talked about example in cloud cost optimization, right? All these, apply. real-time decision making, adaptability, and personalization. We talked about the core components, how they work. There is the perception, right? These agents, they can gather data from sensors, from cameras, from microphones, from external database, from tools, and they are applied in use cases such as autonomous vehicles. Like in autonomous vehicles, we use lidar and cameras to detect surroundings. They are very good with reasoning, so agents can analyze data, they can apply logical rules, and they can make decisions on behalf of us. An example could be recommendation systems like Netflix, right? They suggest movies based on your behavior, based on what you like, right? Based on your interest. And they can take action. Agents execute tasks. They either physically or digitally, sign it and execute the task. You might have seen it in robotic vacuums. They can navigate rooms for efficient cleaning. If there is an obstacle, they try to pivot and go around it, and still making sure that clean whatever is left. And they can learn over time. Agents improve performance, right, by learning from past experience. Example is chatbots. Every time an user interact, their responses become refiner, right? So nowadays, you have IT workflows. You have incident response. You need to do some asset provisioning. You need to run some compliance checks, right? And imagine, all these workflows are autonomous now, running in the background, and your teams are focused on innovation. So that's the power of agentic AI. So now let's look at what are the type of AI agents, right? So before we come to the type, how is agentic AI different from traditional AI? What are your thoughts, folks? We've been 20 minutes into this session. I've been talking about AI and I've been talking about agentic AI. So, in your thoughts, how do you think agentic AI is different from traditional AI? Yeah, Gajanand. I mean, we'll talk about, a very broad scope, but, we will definitely give you a roadmap how you can start adopting agentic AI within your enterprise, and how do you measure, once you adopt, how do you measure its business value? We'll definitely talk about that, and we can even take one use case and try to run through it. But how is it different from agentic AI? See, traditionally AI has been predictive. They have been analytical, right? It can recognize patterns, it can do narrow intelligence. It is generally focused on some insight or predictions, but they don't act on those things, right? They'll just give you that. It only emits those insights, it only gives you predictions. And there is sometimes, or most cases, a human in the loop where decisions and actions, beyond a certain confidence level, there's a threshold, there's always a human in the loop. And the value that it brings is informed decision making, right? It's reducing the cognitive load. That's the value it's bringing. Whereas agentic AI is goal oriented, it is autonomous, right? The agents are given an objective like reduce cloud cost by 20%, and figure out the steps to achieve them. So you have agents which will go do analyze the FinOps, right? Analyze the cloud, services that are running. What is the instance types? What is the compute? What is the memory, right? What is the provisioning? Are they dynamically provisioned, or are they, reserved instances? And what it takes to reduce the cost, right? So multiple agents will work together and figure out your broader objective. Agentic AI, unlike traditional AI, they can do adaptive reasoning, right? They can use large language models and tools and memory to adjust based on the conditions. We talked about how it can be multi-agent, right? Agents can coordinate among each other. We talked about how it's self-improving, and bottom line value that agentic AI brings, unlike traditional AI where it's only reducing the cognitive load, agentic AI will do judgment and it is autonomous at scale, right? It's automation at scale. It's like self-optimizing workflows, right? So if you have a vending machine, right, you press a button and it gives it serves a soft drink every time. That is automation. But you bring in a calculator, it can analyze data, it will give you answers, but it will only give you the answers. That is traditional AI. Whereas you have a smart assistant, a smart executive, which can understand the goal, can understand the plan actions, understand the collaboration that it needs to do, and deliver outcome. That is agentic AI, right? Great. Let's move on to the types of agents, right? There are simple reflex agents. These operate on predefined rules. They respond directly to certain data based on the environment, right? It is a slightly advanced AI, you can say, simple reflex agents. Model-based reflex agents, they maintain an internal model and they keep track of things that are not observable, right? Then it could be, for example, the amount of time it takes, right, to process, the volumes of data, right, the frequency of data, things like that. It will keep track of it, and it will allow more informed decision making. Right, a model would just look at data and give. Here, it's looking at the frequency of data, the volume of data, and many more unobservable aspects. Then there is goal-based agents. Mostly, this is what we try to build, goal-based agents. They use goals to guide actions. They make decisions based on the outcomes that are desired, and they also tell you the likelihood of achieving that, right? Utility-based agents, they integrate with various tools like Outlook, blocking calendars, reservations, and things like that. Learning agents, generally part of goal-based agents, they continuously learn from their environment and they improve their performance over time, right? So these are some of the type of agents. There's also autonomous or fully autonomous agents, which does without having any human intervention. And the way they are able to learn, we have been talking about learning, right? They can learn using supervised learning. The agents, they trained on labeled data, mapping the input and output, and they minimize prediction errors. They're also learning using unsupervised learning, right? They are identifying patterns in data, they're identifying structures, and they are using these techniques like clustering, dimensionality reduction, and understanding about data. They're also using learning using reinforcement learning and make decisions by maximizing the rewards, right? Like the what's the reward here? It's the desired outcome, right? So let's talk about the practical implementation. And what you see in this slide is pretty much broad based. What I will try to give you is, more practical, how you can implement agentic AI within your organization. Let me see if I can use some whiteboarding, right? So first, I think you should look at repetitive workflows within your organization, right? For example, incident management or invoice processing. And then you start piloting agents, right? And this will have only narrow scope, right, to begin with. Maybe one for just triaging your tickets, right? One agent which will only triage tickets. One agent, just for approval, looking at an invoice and approve. And one agent maybe just for report generation, right? The next step will be to orchestrate, right? What would you orchestrate? You orchestrate these one agent which can do ticket triaging, one agent which can do approval, right? Using frameworks. There are agentic AI frameworks, right? like LangChain. There are agentic AI frameworks like Crew AI, right? There's also Microsoft is working on one very interesting framework called Autogen, right? And again, I encourage all of you to look this up, Autogen, right? You can use these frameworks and orchestrate agents. The next step will be to integrate with your enterprise systems, right? So far, you have been working in isolation. Now integrate them with ServiceNow, integrate with your Salesforce, right? Integrate with your SAP or Workday, right? And finally, bring in governance, very important. And that's where leaders come in. I mean, all these, even a data scientist can do. Here is where, leaders can add value, governance and guardrails. What do I mean by that? You need to see if you need a human in the loop. You need to see what are the compliance, right? Is it meeting my, if you're into healthcare, is it meeting my HIPAA Act? If you are into European customer service, is it meeting the GDPR? What is the audit trial that I'm maintaining, right? If a agent is taking a decision that this should be, this is probably a high risk ticket. Why did it take the decision, right? What was the data points that it used to take that decision? You need audit trail for that, right? So all that needs to be baked in, right? When you implement agentic AI. Now, let's say you did all of this and you built a bunch of agentic AIs and you have deployed that in production. How would you measure the business value? So the business value will be measured in terms of IT cost, right? How much of incident resolution times have you reduced? How much of a drop in severity one incidents, right? From a finance standpoint, how much are you saving annually for using agentic AI by bringing using them for fraud detection or auditing continuously or real-time monitoring? From a retail standpoint, how many autonomous agents lifted the marketing campaign CTR by 18%? So you need to have KPIs. The business value are measured using KPIs. Let's say you're an insurance domain. The KPI will be how much was the claim processing time reduced by using multi-agent claim validation system, right? So you need to set those KPIs, and again, leadership plays a critical role in setting those KPIs. But from a broad standpoint, what it takes to implement agentic AI, you should have the capability to collect data and pre-process them. This is all, what is your data preparedness, right? Your organization data preparedness. And this not only applies to agentic AI, it also applies to business AI, right? Can you do AI? Do you have enough data? How much of noise is there in your data, right? What is the structure of your data, right? Do you have feature maps right away version, or do you need to create that? So you should have a strong, coherent data teams who are working, and they are matured enough to understand what is the quality of data that you have. If not, as leaders, you should know that where to get the data from. Would you source the data? Would you be buying the data? Would you be simulating data? The next is model training. This is where machine learning team or data science team, will be playing a big role. But we need to train the agent using algorithms, choosing the right algorithm, choosing the right technique, right? Would you use neural network? Would you use a decision tree, or would you use a reinforcement learning algorithm? So that's very critical. The decision making, you know, narrowing down to the right model. and training your data on them. The the next step would be, how would you deploy them? Do you need real-time monitoring, or would your agent be dealing with batches of data? What is your target environment? Should it be on the cloud? Should it be on the edge? Or should it be on an on-premise device? Can it interact with other system? What roles, what privileges, what authorization is needed to talk to other systems? Is it safe enough? Can it go and manipulate, like a golden source data, and that can be a major loss to the firm? How are we putting guardrails around that? Right. So all these are important, which is very much covered in ML ops, right? Which is a very specialized skill, which requires you to understand machine learning, which requires you to understand agentic AI, because you are deploying agents, and then requires you to understand operations very well, or DevOps very well. And once it's deployed, that's not the end of it, right? We need to continue monitoring it, and there might be maintenance. You need to look at agents performance, you need to update it, maybe change the model and retrain them. That's a very expensive maintenance activity. Retraining is again a very maintenance heavy activity. Updating the data, right? When you deploy agents, right? They're, let's say, asked to do claim validation of in an insurance firm. So initially it will be doing very well. Over time, the processing time might take longer and longer, and the amount of autonomous processing, the volumes would come down, because it's not able to meet the threshold. Why is it not able to meet the threshold? Because the data is drifting, probably, right? So you need your data team to monitor and see, is the data drifting? If so, go back and train the model with more relevant data. Or the performance is drifting for some reason. If the performance is drifting, can we look at better models? Can we look at retraining the same data? Can we look at doing some supervised fine tuning? So all these are practical implementation steps. And we talked about a lot of applications, right? So it's used in various business impact. Like, for example, IT operations, we saw how it is able to like reduce downtime, save millions in SLA penalties. In finance, we have consulted on a finance firm which required continuous audit and fraud detection. Right? If I want to give a context, it's a global FMCG company, and they have a complex vendor ecosystem, right? And there was always frequently, the invoices were mismatching. So agentic AI was introduced, and these finance agents, they were able to reconcile the invoice, flag anomalies, look at contracts, chase for approvals, and they were initiating payment release. And the impact, this FMCG company was able to save $20 million annually, right? Because of the fraud prevention and compliance breaches. Even the audit cycle was reduced from 6 months to almost real time. There was another retail marketing, right? It's a large e-commerce player, and they were sending generic campaigns, right, using CTR. So multi-agent was introduced. This system analyzed how customers were browsing based on their history. They generalized, they generated copies, and A/B tested these marketing emails, right? And because of that, there was an 18% uplift in the campaign. There were 12% higher conversions, right? And directly driving revenue growth. We had a insurance example. I think we talked about that. There was one manufacturing use case, right, where there was a electronics manufacturer. They were facing frequent disruptions due to shipping delays. So agentic AI was brought into action. They built supply chain agents, which used to track logistics feed. It detected if there was a port strike, if there was a weather alert, right? Because that was the major concern. And they were autonomously rerouting the shipments, right? So their recovery was faster, the disruptions were far less, and they were able to come, deliver and on time, based on their commitments to their top clients. There was a healthcare use case where the hospital network was struggling to follow up, people who are missing appointments, and they were billing delays. So an agentic AI was brought into action. Patient care agents were built. And this one are coordinated appointments. They checked insurance approvals. They followed up with patient, updated their health records. And the impact was 30% reduction in missed appointments. So faster insurance claims, improved patient satisfaction, right? So likewise, there are so many other, commercial agents that I can show, right? Maybe I can show a few. There is something called, if you're still seeing my screen, there's something called intercom fin. Okay, this is a agentic AI which can do customer service, especially in the financial domain, right? It will work with your help desk. It's almost number one in performance benchmark. Very easy, plug and play, right? It can look up for your external data, your database. It can use your tools, and it can start running from day one. There is something called forethought. Again, customer support agent. Forethoughts AI, right? This is another agentic AI which will build customer support and service teams in just a few clicks, right? Again, I encourage all of you to look up this. There is something called, if you're into technology, if you have a lot of coding that happens within your organization, there's something called Devin, which was built by Cognition, right? So Devin is like a AI software engineer. Imagine hiring an IIT pass out or using Devin, right? It can start building. You don't have to train them, right? It can build ticketing, it can plan, it can test, it can do pull request, everything that a tech lead can do. Today, there are AI financial advisors, like for example, Compound AI, right? So Compound AI has been very well um, used by Databricks, right? So again, you can look up that. What it does is it is gathering data based on users' financial goals. It will monitor market trends. It will maintain memory, obviously, right? It will rebalance users' portfolio. It will keep giving tax saving nudges. There is something very interesting called Harvey, right? I would like to show you this. This is a legal research agent, folks, right? It can read legal documents, any legal document across the world. Today, our lawyers, our advocates, they are only specialized in their respective country, right? So this can read legal documents, it can search case laws, it can look at statutes, it can remember firm specific clauses and preferences. It can draft you a master service agreement in few minutes, right? And there is a widespread demand for personal life coach, right? So if you are looking for something like that, there's something called Replica. Okay. So Replica is again a agentic AI which can look at your habits. It can look at what you think, it can look at your goals, your emotions, and it can intervene and put in some behavioral patterns. right? It can identify, let's say you're having some burnout, so it can recommend and schedule meditation sessions. It can give you rest reminders, right? Amazing life coach, right? uh, I can go on, right? There's so many more, right? But maybe I'll give you one more, right? Which is again from one of an Indian company. It's called Khanmigo. Okay. So this is developed by Khan Academy, right? So it is a agentic AI that can tutor your kids. It can understand what is your kids' pace, how they grasp things. It can give personalized lesson paths. It can use it uses a lot of tools, simulators, visual aids, and it will give you progress, right? It is like a math tutor agent. It can also teach algebra. It can teach visual geometry, right? And it can even teach environment science, right? So a lot of examples, a lot of real world commercial examples as well, right? We talked about practical examples, and these are commercial examples, right? So the call to action for you leaders is, where can you deploy an agent tomorrow, right? What should that agent do to improve your respective business, right? Now, a lot of you I've seen in my previous masterclass kind of mix up Gen AI with Agentic AI, right? I mean, these are two different things, right? Gen AI can generate content, whereas Agentic AI may or may not use Gen AI, but it is basically responsible to do autonomous action or problem solving. Gen AI, you can write stories, whereas Agentic AI, it can do booking, it can do workflow automation. Gen AI is mostly passive, it needs prompting, whereas Agentic AI, they just need guardrails, right? That they're almost autonomous. Now you might be wondering, okay, all this is good, how are we actually building it, right? So to build, you need certain building blocks. We talked about them. One is perception, reasoning, action, and learning, right? So perception. So here you need data, right? It has to learn from sensors, from APIs, from databases. Reasoning, here it might use LLMs, right? It might use neural networks. Action, it might be sending an email, so you might need an API, or some workflow needs to be triggered, right? And then it can orchestrate. And from a learning, right, it has to refine, right? So it's a data flywheel that you're building, right? So it has to enhance the performance over time. So you need to refine their behavior through feedback loops or supervised fine tuning, as we call it, right? So that's how you would, a step deeper and look at agentic AI, right? Um, Now, one more question I often get is, give me how a multi-agent workflow would look like, right? I can give an example, right? So before we move on to the agentic AI for leaders, so to build a multi-agent workflow, one let's take an example. Okay, you want to organize a product launch event. You are launching a new product, right? And you want to have an event, to do that. So you take help of an agentic system that can do this. You will build one agent, right, which can break down this project into smaller steps. Like for example, this agent will book venue for this. It will schedule, let's say, speakers. It will try to promote the events on social media using some post. So again, it will need large language model or Gen AI to do that, right? These are APIs. These are also APIs, right? Or yeah, it may be APIs. Then it will assign the subtask to specialized agents, right? What is the specialization? You have one agent that can do scheduling, one agent that can do copywriting, one agent that can do design, right? So it will start assigning these subtasks to these other agents. Then it will use Gen AI, like we talked about, right? It will use Gen AI for content creation. It will take actions, and then you need to validate this, right? You have to, in a way, validate and refine how it's doing. So you might be doing while it is, taking the action, or as a retrospect, right? You might be looking what was the action it took, and in retrospect, was it the right action, right? So that's how you would validate. So what agentic AI means for leaders, folks, right? So we have another few minutes. So this is a new leadership lever. That's how I would look at it, right? Just like cloud, just like mobile, just like SaaS, all these reshaped IT. Similarly, agentic AI is a next transformation layer. So leaders, you can delegate your judgment, you can delegate your execution to digital agents, and they can operate continuously. And this is for leaders to move from efficiency to more automation. It's not about doing the same task faster and faster. We have kind of mastered that. It's about how do you reimagine your workflow? How do agents how can you use agents to proactively detect problems? How you can take corrective actions? How you can optimize the outcomes, right? So it's basically a workforce multiplier for you leaders. It's a scalable digital workforce, which is tireless, which is specialized, which is collaborative. And here, for you leaders, this is a strategic shift. It is moving from managing task to managing outcome, right? So you have to focus, shifting from goal setting, policy, and governance, right? So earlier you were managing task. Now you can look at much more holistic outcomes, and the agent will execute the playbook for you. So the call to action really is to embrace agentic AI, right? It's because it'll bring you competitive advantage. Early adopters definitely see 30-50% gains. Late adopters, you can risk disrupted by your competitors. You can bring in resilience and agility to your business, right? Because it can adapt to real time conditions. What your business might be an 8-hour business now can become 24/7 for 365 days. You're agile, you become agile, right? You become more of a differentiator, right? It becomes a differentiator for your business. And then you're basically scaling your cost and scaling the value. You're lowering the cost of operation at the cost of improving the value, right? Or scaling the value. There's a innovation enabler we didn't talk about, right? Whatever agentic AI has done so far is only the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a lot of innovation cut out and in store that you can start exploring. And also it's a cultural signal, I feel, right? So embracing it's to employees, for customers, for investors, right? It's a forward looking thing, and something, an indication that you are looking at digital transformation. But a lot of people also think that these are going to replace people. I feel it's not going to replace people. It's about upgrading your organization's operating model. Industrial revolution didn't replace people. People thought, machines will replace humans, right? We had more and more jobs, mechanized labor. And same way, agentic AI will autonomize knowledge work, right? And I feel leaders who embrace it will be running enterprises that are more agile, that are more resilient. or more future proof, right? And we have already seen that in the AI, in the case of AI, right? So that's what we had about agentic AI, folks. Hopefully this was interesting. We talked about AI, we talked about the definition of agentic AI, how is it different from traditional AI. We talked about what are the characteristic of agentic AI that makes it different. We talked about numerous use cases, practical use cases. We walked through some of the commercial agentic AI implementations out there, and we give you a practical roadmap how you can start implementing agentic AI, how you can measure business value of agents in your enterprise, right? So with that, let me turn it over to Vikas, right? And he'll give you a few details about how you can pursue, your eagerness, your intrigueness towards agentic AI, how you can learn this in a more strategic way, in a more structured way, and how you can start, bringing more impact to your leadership and to your organization, right? So I'll turn it over to Vikas to cover that part in the next few minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Sham. Sham, we are almost past 6:50. If
Mhm.
you said you have meeting, so if you want to leave, you can leave. I can take it from here.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, folks. All the very best.
Thank you, Sham. Thank you so much for joining. Okay. Hey guys. So now I will be explaining about great learning and also why you should do the course in great learning and also the specialities of this particular AI AFL courses. Okay. So before that, okay, so before that, you might have a lot of questions, right? Regarding what will be what are the available courses, right? Some may be interested in Gen AI only programs, some may be interested in AI only programs, right? So you may have a lot of confusions about the curriculum, how does the curriculum looks, about the fee structure and everything, right? So so I have shared of feedback form. So this will basically give us the idea of whatever that queries that you have. So you can just fill in this form, and there is a suggestion question at the last where you can, let's say if you want the recording of this video, right? Or let's say if you want the content that is presented today, right? And some may have joined late, and if you wanted to have the recording of the video, if you want to know about the fee structure of the all the available courses, right? You can just fill this form, and our team will get back to you with all the answers that you need. Okay. So basically, talking about great learning, right? Um, so we provide online courses basically that is very much known. So we are the leading one of the leading tech company for professional and higher education, and we have around 12 million learners across 170 plus countries, and we have around 400 million plus hours of learning, right? We have around 15,000 plus career transition, 4,000 plus hiring partners from the start of great learning. We have around 100,000 live sessions conducted, right? And we also have partnership with great colleges like the University of Texas at Austin, MIT, Northwestern University, John Hopkins, etc. Right? And to talk about the program, so these programs will have a lot of hands-on as well as a lot of case studies. So it won't be much of a theoretical kind of program, right? You will have the business understanding of how AI works. You will have introduction to AI project buildings. You will have introduction to neural networks. You will have introduction to unsupervised learning, supervised learning, right? Recommendation systems, etc. And you will have a separate module about generative AI, right? And you will also have capstone projects, right, where you will be making projects in group and you will be presenting it in front of your class. And so we also provide one dedicated program manager for each course. So these program manager will be helping you through the admission process through the the course. Once you join the course, they will help you any queries related to the course. Let's say about the certificates, let's say about the the classes, the scheduling of classes, everything, right? And so basically this program is for people like product managers, business heads, delivery managers, account managers, data science consultants. So this program is basically designed for business leaders to learn how to leverage the power of AI to build products or services. Okay. And so why we should enroll now, right? Basically, why we need a AI course right now to do, as you have learned from this webinar that a lot of things has been changing and everything is being automated, right? All our AI automations going on, and last 5 years there is a very much increase in AI automations, and from 5 years, no, 5 years from now, you will have another great a revolution, AI revolution happening, right? So it's very important for the leaders to be knowing what is the current technology to cope up with the people, right? Right now all the young generation are very much into technology and everything. So to cope up with them also, this is a right program, you know, to take decisions on that as well. So apart from this, um, so we, as I already mentioned, we have 16 hours of dedicated Gen AI modules, and we also have a lot of tools in these programs as well, right? So um, so once you fill this form, right, if you have any queries regarding the fee structure or the curriculum or anything you wanted to clarify with us, you can just mention in this form. I will just pin the form one more time, right? And you can fill this form, and anything, our team will get back with you with all the answers that you need, right? If any other queries, you can post it in the Q&A section or in the chat. I can take it up. uh, we'll take 3 more minutes to fill the forms, and we can end the webinar by 7:05, right? I hope the session was insightful. Any other queries, I can take it. You just mention it in the chat box. We'll wait for 1 more minute. You guys can fill the form. Once that is done, we can end the webinar. Okay, I think that's it for now. And thank you so much for joining on a weekday. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.